Alam niyo po, una po sa lahat, ginigiit natin dito na ang tradisyon ay tradisyon. Pero una sa lahat, kung ang tradisyon ay bumabangga sa interes ng mga mamamayan, sa interes ng publiko, at accountability ng mga public officials, at saka pagiging transparent ng lahat ng ating mga ginagawa, lalong-lalo na po sa kaperahan o lalong-lalo po sa budget or whatever na pinagkatiwala po ng taong bayan sa atin, ay kailangan po yun yung nauuna. Kaya nagpapasalamat po ako na dahil ito po yung magsiset, no, noong mga pwede nating magawa sa rules, mabago sa rules, pwede nating in aid of legislation, lalong-lalo na pinag-uusapan natin ang confidential funds and intelligence funds or confidential funds dito sa Office of the Vice President. At ito ay inaasahan ko na magsiset sa katapusan nitong hearing na ito, yung magsiset talaga na kung dapat o hindi dapat mabigyan ng confidential funds ang ating mga national government agency. At kung meron man, depende kung ano po yung magiging resulta ng inquiry na ito, ay mapahigpit natin, no? Yung kung meron man, kung magde-decide later on na may confidential funds pa rin, magde-decide pa rin na magiging mahigpit, no, yung paggamit ng confidential funds. Okay, so dahil hindi naman po nag-oath yung Vice President, Mr. Chair, ang akin na lang mga tanong ay tatanong ko na lang po sa DBM at saka sa COA. Okay, so inaasahan natin, no, na magsasabi kayo ng totoo. So yung first question ko po sa DBM, yung pong, by the way, I manifest second round kung matatapos ko na yung 5 minutes, Mr. Chair.
Sige po.
Yes. Okay. So, nung 2022 po na budget ng Office of the Vice President sa DBM, Mr. Chair, meron po ba ditong nakalagay na line item for confidential funds?
Please address the chair.
Mr.
When
Chair,
answering.
Mr. Chair. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Sa DBM po, please, you are, Yusek Toledo, you are recognized.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, yes, there is no line item for confidential fund, but there is a program that item under that program po na ginagamit po yung confidential fund po.
I'm not satisfied with the answer. Ang tinatanong ko lang po, meron bang line item doon sa budget ng Office of the President na confidential fund? Meron po bang line item po? Yes or no?
There is no, Madam Chair,
Yes.
but Mr. Chair.
Okay. How about noong 2023? Budget of the Office of the Vice President. Is there a line on about confidential funds?
There is, Mr. Chair, there is a line item for
Magkano po, Mr. Chair, yung confidential funds of the Office of the Vice President for 2023?
500 million, Mr. Chair.
Okay, you're correct. Kasi nandito naman, meron naman tayong dyan. Okay, so kung compare natin, Mr. Chair, yung Office of the Vice President budget, GAA 2022 and GAA 2023, so makikita natin agad-agad yung difference. No, na yung confidential funds sa Office of the Vice President noong 2022 ay wala, pero sa Office of the Vice President sa 2023 ay meron. Okay, so paano po nagkaroon ng 125 million na confidential funds ang Office of the Vice President noong 2022, Mr. Chair, sa DBM?
Okay, Mr. Chair, while the OVP has no provision for the confidential funds under the fiscal year 2022 GAA, the said release of funds was charged against the contingent fund using the existing PAP of the Office of the Vice President. That is the Good Governance Program, Mr. Chair.
Well, ano po yung ibig sabihin ng good governance program po? Kasi defined, alam po natin meron tayong JC o joint circular governing confidential funds. So, can you elaborate on good governance, Mr. Chair, yung binabanggit ninyo po?
The Good Governance is a program of the OVP, and so that's the basis for us for the release of the confidential plan of the Office of the Vice President, Mr. Chair.
Well, can you elaborate ano ba yung good governance? Dahil malinaw po doon sa rules or the joint circular governing confidential funds, yung mga pwede lang napondohan ng confidential funds, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, we have already responded to that inquiry. We have already sent already the letter dated September 11, 2023, as to what is the all about the good governance program of the OVP, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, these representations has no copy of what you are referring to as the good governance programs. May I request for the copy, Mr. Chair?
Please take note of the manifestation of Congressman Castro Comsec. Would you like to respond, Comsec?
Your Honor, as to the part of the committee secretariat, we have not received a document from the Department of Budget Management. We have sent an invitation on September 13. We are not in receipt of a position paper or any document dated September 11, Your Honor. It might be a different committee.
Okay, but just the same, yes, I may respond to the inquiry as far as what is all about the good governance program, particularly the good governance engagement and social services projects. This is in consideration of the urgency of the safe implementation of various projects and activities of the Office of the Vice President across its satellite offices for the last, the conduct of its official engagement and functional representation in international and local events, the implementation of various projects and activities relevant to national security and peace and order, and implementation of the same with proper security and safety protocols for the benefit of the institution. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ma'am, you only have 1 minute.
1 minute.
Please wrap up your...
Okay. So did the Office of the Vice President in 2022 asked for a budget for confidential funds for the DBM?
Your Honor, Mr. Chair, for 2022, there is no request for the confidential in the budget, but we have, as mentioned, they have requests for the chargeable, we have requests for 2022, but that was charged to the contingent fund.
There was a, so may request po ba o wala?
Doon sa proposed budget for 2022, wala po.
Pero saan po kinuha yung 125? Sinasabi nyo kanina, Mr. Chair, ay doon sa contingent fund. So, hindi po ba kapag merong request for a lump sum o merong ibibigay or pagkukuhanan yung lump sum, dapat may request?
Okay.
So,
Yes, Mr. Chair. So during the implementation of the fiscal year 2022 budget, there was a request coming from the Office of the Vice President to release an additional requirement for the fiscal year 2022 budget. Basically, hindi lang po yung confidential plan, but also for some PS and MOE requirements. Now, this was...
pinag-uusapan lang natin yung confidential
Okay.
funds.
So, Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
Chair.
yes, there was a request coming from the Office of the Vice President during the implementation of the budget in that year. So that's why in...
So, Mr. Chair, may I cut you on that with due respect. So, may I ask, Mr. Chair, the request...
Last
Yes.
question, please.
So, second round na lang ako, Mr. Chair. May I ask the DBM, Mr. Chair, the letter request from the Office of the Vice President. So, yun na lang, Mr. Chair, at itutuloy ko na lang po mamaya.
The DBM is requested to submit the letter of the Honorable Vice President. The
yes,
request
Mr.
letter of
Chair.
the Honorable. Please submit it to the COMSEC.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next to interpolate is Honorable Nika Swansing. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I was just hoping to take this opportunity because COA, the right team from COA is already here. So if I may request the COMSEC, Mr. Chair, and the permission of the Honorable Chairman to pull up some slides on the screen. Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
please.
Mr. Chair, these were the same slides that I presented to the Committee on Appropriations during the deliberation on the budget of the Office of the Vice President 2 weeks ago. For those who were not there in the meeting, a very quick summary, Mr. Chair, in the interest of time. So these, the slides were put together based on the different documents submitted by COA in compliance to the subpoena duces tecum and accomplishment report submitted by the Office of the Vice President. And here, Mr. Chair, several things to note. Essentially, we have summarized across the 4 quarters in terms of the disbursement of the confidential expenses of the Office of the Vice President, the different audit findings of the Commission on Audit across the 4 different quarters. So for Q4 2022, which is the subject of the notice of disallowance, it was found that there's a 73 million out of 125 million that was considered by COA as disallowed in audit. And then for the succeeding quarters, accordingly, Mr. Chair, you would see here the proportion of the 125 million, which was questioned in the audit order memorandum and not questioned across the succeeding quarters. During the deliberations of the Office of the Vice President, President's budget, I directed a question towards COA to please enlighten us as to the grounds for the notice of disallowance for Q4 2022 and the 3 succeeding quarters which were subjected to the AOM, Mr. Chair. However, during the OVP budget hearing, the representative of COA, Assistant Commissioner Alexander Juliano, said that he was not privy to the information as he was not part of the team handling the confidential expenses. So, Mr. Chair, I believe the team who did the audit is present in today's hearing. So if we may request, Mr. Chair, COA to please enlighten us for the 4 different quarters covered by the notice of the disallowance and the audit order memorandum, may we please request, Mr. Chair, COA to please enlighten us as to the ground. So perhaps, Mr. Chair, we can go quarter by quarter. We can first start with Q4 2022, which was the subject of the notice of disallowance.
Any representative from COA?
Mr. Chair, Attorney Gloria Camora, the State Auditor of
Attorney
the ICFAO,
Camora.
yes, will answer the question
Attorney
of the
Camora, you are
Honorable
recognized.
Congresswoman.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair. As to the 2022 notice of disallowance, There were
Ma'am,
three-
pakilakasan po ninyo yung boses nyo, hindi marinig.
Okay. There were three items that are part of the notice of disallowance. The first one is on the non-submission of documents on the payment of rewards. The second one is charging some items that are not compliant under the rules joint circular. And the third one is non-submission of the revised accomplishment report of the office of the VP to the three regulatory offices, which are the Office of the President, the Senate President, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, because what they have submitted was the original one, and they made an amendment, but as of now, they have not resubmitted the amended accomplishment report.
Mr. Chair, if
Please proceed,
COA may
Congresswoman
please
Swanson.
enlighten to explain to us, because it seems a little bit technical po, as to how it was explained by COA. Kung pwede po maipaliwanag po sa atin in non-technical terms as to the grounds for the disallowance po.
Kuha, pakisimplify po. Please explain it in layman's term.
Yes po. Basically, the disallowances is because hindi po sila nag-submit ng required na documents under the joint circular.
Mr. Chair, if we may move to the next slide.
Please proceed.
COMSEC, next slide, please. Here, Mr. Chair, shows a breakdown of the different expense items listed in the accomplishment report for Q4 2022 and the three succeeding quarters, which were the subject of the AOMs. Mr. Chair, I would like to again throw the question to COA, because it seems to me, I am not an auditor, so it seems to me that across the three succeeding quarters, the categories that were flagged as questioned in the AOM are similar across the three succeeding quarters. So, pare-pareho po yung naka-orange po, payment of reward, yung provision of medical and food aid, at saka po payment of incentives or traveling relative to the confidential operation. So, Mr. Chair, if I may request COA to please enlighten us as to the reason why these categories seem to be repeatedly flagged across the succeeding quarters under audit.
COA?
Yes, Mr. Chair. As to the payment of rewards, the joint circular requires a document, the supporting documents evidencing the success of the information gathering. As far as the documents that they have submitted, we are not, so far, we are not satisfied with the documents they have submitted. So we ask them to submit the documents that would satisfy the joint circular. As to the provision of food and medical items, again, we ask them for an explanation, since by themselves, food and medical aid appears to not fall under the expenses allowed by the joint circular. So we are asking for explanation on those items. And then, it's the same with traveling expenses, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, in the interest of time, I'll move to my final slide.
You still have 1 minute.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Clarificatory question sa Mr. Chair, kasi at least nandito na ba yung team sa COA. Last slide, please, COMSEC. Here, Mr. Chair, I would like to ask COA, because very interestingly po, isa po sa mga napansin natin is the length of disbursement for the 125 million across the different quarters po. Meron po ba na information yung COA as to how how the disbursements were done in terms of the speed by which the disbursements were done? Like for example po, the 125 million in December were spent in 11 days as opposed to in Q3 2023 po, wherein it was spent in 79 days. So kasi po, one thing that we can see as well in the previous slide is regardless of the length of the disbursement or the speed of the disbursement or the areas of surveillance, if you can move to the previous slide, COMSEC. Ito po. The numbers of areas under surveillance are different, and the speed of the disbursement is different as well. But it seems like the expenditure patterns are very similar po across categories and across the different quarters. So, meron po bang nakita yung COA with regards to that po, Mr. Chair?
Please wrap up your questions. Pakisagot na lang po, tapos na po kayo.
Mr. Chair, since we were given the data on the areas and they have also submitted the evidences of payments, we did not conduct a study on the speed by which the frequency of the payments, as long as we were satisfied with the number of areas that they have served. So if we can average it based on that, the number of areas, I think it is possible to be spending the said amounts.
Mr. Chair, final question na lang
Okay,
po.
last question.
Because the AOMs were issued po in February 1, 2024 for the first AOM, and then the second AOM po on August 8, 2024. Reading through the AOMs po, the Office of the Vice President is given 15 days to respond to the AOMs. I believe the first one has been responded to in April. So meron na po bang response doon po sa August 8 na AOM?
Yes, Madam Chair, they have submitted their reply to the AOMs, and the audit is on the compliance is ongoing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Those are my clarificatory questions po. Clarification, because the team handling the audit is now here. So just wanted to clarify po dun po sa slides na present po nung nakalaang OVP budget hearing. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair.
May I approach the table? Request 1 minute suspension.
The chair declares 1 minute suspension. Session resumes.
Mr. Chair, may I
The
request...
Honorable Vice President is recognized.
Thank you. May I request to leave the inquiry?
Ma'am, pwede naman po, considering na hindi naman din po kayo naka-oath and alam naman po namin, marami rin po kayong ginagawa. The Vice President is excused.
Thank you.
Thank you po,
Thank you,
ma'am.
everyone. Good morning.
1 minute suspension is declared by the chair.